Hola! Welcome to the third episode of the Flip the Switch podcast. I'm your host, our fourth episode actually.
Well, you include the intro.
Right. Fourth episode of the Flip the Switch podcast. I'm your host, I'm Luke. My co-host is Jake, and every single week on this podcast, we're going to bring you a different tool or tip. We're going to bring you a different tool or tip that is going to relate to your mindset. It could relate to nutrition. It could relate to exercise. It's going to revolve around something that we're going to use to transform your life, because that's what we do for a living, right? Is we help people transform their lives every single day. So with this podcast, the cool part about this podcast here is this podcast, we do it completely free. We do it completely free, which is why I make mistakes every once in a while, which is why I started this one on the other page, which is why we're a minute late. But we do it completely free, right? The only thing that we ask for in return is if you take anything out of this podcast, if this podcast helps you in any way, or you think it could help anybody else in a different way, share it. Share this podcast, share where we host it, share what we do with it, share what you take out of it. We do this live on our Facebook page every single week. We do it for free on our main Facebook page. We also post it on Spotify every single week. So follow us on Facebook, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, subscribe to the channel that we put on there. And remember that if you ever run into a situation where you want to start transforming your life and take it a little bit more serious, right? And you want to lose some weight, we have a 6-week switch program that we do, and you'll see it in our Facebook page, and you start seeing some of the results that are coming out of it now. If you ever want to take it serious though, we can help. We can help. So if you get to the point where you need to do something different, make sure you go to that 6-week switch and make sure you get started with it. So, anything to add on there, Jay?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty fair trade, right? I mean, you get all the tips, all the tricks, all the transformation stuff, and all we ask is for you to tell others. And if you ever are really serious about changing your body or your mind, to check us out with the 6-week switch, because it's a game changer. So no, I think it's pretty fair.
I would say it's fair. All right, so last week on the Flip the Switch podcast, we talked about discipline, right? And, we gave everybody a 72-hour challenge of, first of all, rate yourself, and then, go through and create a hit list for yourself every single day and find 72 hours straight where you can hit that hit list and you can get yourself progressing forward. So the one thing that we want to know from that challenge last week, and, go ahead, comment down below in this video, or shoot us a message. I know there's that in Spotify, shoot us a message there, or even on Facebook, shoot us a message. Let us know how that went for you. Let us know how that challenge went for you. Let us know some of the things that you learned about yourself. And let us know, where you started and where you got to in just 72 short hours.
And, you had just brought up, if you ever thought about, if you ever want to take it serious and you ever want to make a big change, check out the 6-week switch. And that our quote of the day in the 6-week switch today was, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power, right? And that's a very first thing. When you said that about, we want to hear about your 72-hour challenge, the very first thing that popped into my head is, I hope you didn't listen to it and then didn't do it. Right? Because learning about discipline and learning about what you need to do it and then not taking the 72-hour challenge, that's just understanding something you already knew. It's having that knowledge, but not applying it, not actually taking the 72-hour challenge. That's why we want to hear about it, right? Because we want to see the people that are taking the challenge. How did you do? How did you rate yourself on your discipline, and how did you do? So it just made me think about the 6-week switch.
Right. So now what we want to do is, we're going to keep building on discipline. So if you think about discipline is so wide-ranging. It's a foundation of our program, right? We're going to keep building on foundation. And, today we're going to build on that, and today we're going to need a ton of that, because today we're going to get into nutrition, right? And we're going to get into our basic principles that we use inside of Switch Fitness to really help transform people mentally and physically, because no matter what you think, nutrition is a mental thing at the same time too. So we're going to get into the basic principles that we use inside of Switch Fitness. And one of the foundational pieces that we have in here is the type of fuel and the amount of fuel that you put in your body, right? So all this is going to determine how your body holds energy, stores energy, uses energy, all of it. So this is a real foundational piece of what we do inside of here. And, you know, people that are part of our challenges and part of Switch Fitness, you know, they could go on and on about different things that they've encountered already and had to look at, and, you know, really how it's helped change them. So we're going to really dive into that today. So we're going to dive into the foundational portion of it. And I know you created this 6 key switches, right?
Yep.
So
the 6 switch system, right? Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to dive into that today. So today you're going to get an outline of these principles, right? You're going to get an outline of what these principles are that we use and the ones we recommend too. So you're going to get an outline into here, and we're going to dive into them a little bit more. And then in future episodes, we're going to go into each one of these further in depth, and you're going to get a lot more information in there because, you know, these are foundational pieces, which means there's a lot of information, a lot of science, a lot of things that go into them that unfortunately we can't cover them all in one episode. We could, but you know, Professor Jake over here would be preaching for hours on end, and I've had to deal with it for years, so I know how sick and tired you all will get with it. So we're going to break it down into different episodes for you, and we're going to make it easy. But so let's talk about why we have these principles, and, you know, why these are principles that work for us, and why we preach about them, right? And why we put them in, and how we know they're the ones that work, right? Mm-hmm. So first of all, let's start with, you know, really the authority that goes behind this, right? And, you know, starts off with, we have a registered dietitian here, right? And these are all principles that our registered dietitian believes in our program too.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, you know, any Yahoo right now can go online.
Yeah.
People still call people Yahoos?
They do. I don't know.
Okay.
So most people probably don't.
You call them jackwagons, too, whatever that is.
Jackwagons. Look that up, it's a thing.
It's not a thing, don't listen to that. So anyone can basically go online and say, this is how you should eat. Right? And people believe it, especially depending on how you look, right? They believe it. So I think that's important that we understand that these principles we're talking about, these are from our registered dietitian, and she knows what she's doing. Like, this is what she does for a living. Right. This isn't just, hey, we're a couple of guys who are in good shape, we got a couple of female coaches that are in good shape, and this is how we eat. No. This is from our registered dietitian exactly how we're supposed to eat and the principles that go behind it. Yeah, there's all the experience too, but this is the real deal.
The applicable stuff then too at the same time. So, you know, let's be honest. You spent like 35 years in college.
It was close, but not quite.
But like 35 years in college, he got a master's degree. He was an adjunct professor for a while at a very well-known university inside of Wisconsin. You've got the science and the knowledge that goes behind it too.
Yeah, I do, and I've been training clients for a long time, both on the physical game and mental game, using these principles, and I know they work. I'm still defaulting to we have a registered dietitian, but I appreciate the kind words because
I'm just helping fill this in more. Right?
First time you've ever given me one.
It's not true. But on top of that, though, over the last 12, 15, 20 years, I mean, the thousands of people that we've helped train that have gotten results, right? We wish we could have trained a lot. We were in a big box setting, and, you know, it was frustrating for us, you know, looking at all the people that didn't get the help, or, you know, in the big box setting, how many hundreds of thousands of people that are there, and you wish we could help every single one of them, you know, but we did help a ton. And these are the same principles that, you know, when we use them with people, when we're able to get the people to start using, these are the same ones that got crazy results at the same time too.
Yeah. And they're the same ones that are working, getting people to lose 3, 4, 5 pounds a week. Same principles that are working, that are getting people to be able to work on their mental game because they have the energy, they have the decision-making skills. Same ones that are currently working our 6 week switch. So.
Right. Perfect. So let's get into it. So the Switch 6 system, right? Switch 6 system. It's the 2 that you need to get right? You need to get 2 of these right. You need to get the 2 you need to get enough of, right? And then the 2 you need to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes it easy to remember, right? There's 6 things. Okay, if I'm going to eat right, I got to get 2 things right, right? I gotta have these right numbers. I gotta get these two things right. And then I gotta get enough of these two very, very important things, and I gotta stay the hell away from these very detrimental things. And I think that makes it easy. Right? The right ones, enough of these, stay away from those.
Yeah, I think you're going to hear and you'll get more into it when we dive into these things in future podcasts more in depth, but you're going to start hearing us talk about different things that you need, that there's a lot of people that are out there that say, oh, you don't need any of this stuff, avoid this stuff. And, we're using the facts and reason things. So let's dive into the two that you need to get right. The two biggest things you got to get right that we talk about inside of our program. And number one is the right amount of calories. Right? And why do we need to do that? Your body needs a certain amount of calories just to maintain itself, right? And no matter what you're trying to do, no matter if you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, or maintain weight, don't you think it'd be pretty important to know how many calories it takes you just to maintain weight?
Yeah, and there's all these things out there. Fasting, intermittent fasting, keto diet, all carb, no carb, all fruit, no fruit, all vegetables, no vegetables, nuts, eat like a caveman. It's all out there.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and this is what they won't tell you, at the end of the day, what they are trying to do, yes, they're messing with the amount of carbohydrates and the amount of fats and all that. All of it at the end of the day still is coming back to a way to restrict the amount of calories that your body takes in. They just they dial it up, they dress it up in a way that makes people, because people are so sick of hearing about calories in versus calories out. People are so sick of hearing about, I gotta track my calories and all that.
Right.
So as a marketing ploy, they just say, oh, intermittent fasting, you don't have to worry about calories, just eat during these times, which we use too. But why do you intermittent fast? Because it takes one less meal, which means over the course of a given amount of time, and there's other reasons that we'll get into, but over the course of a given amount of time, you're going to eat less calories.
Right.
So at the end of the day, as much as we want to sit and say calories in versus calories out, it's not the thing we should focus on. I promise you everyone's focused on it.
Right.
They just call it a different
right.
And at the end of the day as well, you have too many calories. Your body will have to store fat. They can't, there is no magical, I'm going to make it disappear. Doesn't work. And if you don't have enough energy, your body has no choice but to create new energy. You can't fuel your car. If you don't have gas in your car, it's not going to magically keep going because you don't believe in gas in versus gas out.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to stop. Well, our bodies are a little bit different. If you don't put enough gas into it, it will have to create gas from stored forms of gas. There's no refuting it. There's no debating it. Mm-hmm. And you can dress up everything else all you want, and we do as well, but it all comes back to the math.
Right. And I'll talk about it in a future podcast also. There's three things in this world that are undefeated. It's Mother Nature, it's Father Time, and then it's math. Math is undefeated at any time, right? And your body's a perfect example of that. And this concept and, this portion of the right amount of calories that you need, this is a perfect example of that. If you eat too many calories in what you're burning, guess what's going to happen? You will gain weight. You will. Your body will store it up and you will end up gaining weight. So that's the first thing. That is the first thing in here that you got to get right. The second thing in here that you have to get right is times for eating, right? Times for eating. And what I mean by that, and the what of it behind it is, use an eating window, right? It's called intermittent fasting, yes. If you don't want to call it intermittent fasting, call it an eating window if you want to avoid that, right? But it is the same thing, right? So use a 6 to 10 hour window for eating your calories. And the reason that we use that is because of your insulin response, right? And your insulin response and what your insulin response does. And, Jake, throughout the years, this has been one of the real big things that you worked on with a lot of people. And, most people that come to you that say, man, I'm putting the work in, Jake, and, something's going wrong. This is the one thing that you always come back to is, okay, what is your eating window, and are you staying inside of your eating window? And here's the reason why we must do it in your insulin response.
Yep. Yeah, it's the first thing I'm going to go to is how often are you eating?
Right.
I want to know that because, and just a quick overview, and I know you say I'm going to bore them, and I may. 100%. I'm going to be excited about it.
100%.
I'm going to be excited about it. Should I do it while doing a handstand or something? Would that make it better?
No.
Okay, well then I'll just go into it.
Yeah, please do.
When we eat, food goes in, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, it doesn't matter. Food goes in, and now our body has to break it down. When it breaks it down, it breaks it down into these simple sugars, it breaks it down into this energy, and that gets directly absorbed into the bloodstream. When that happens, our body produces something called insulin. And the insulin's job is to basically play Uber, right? Just like you're trying to get somewhere, you call an Uber. Well, the insulin is the Uber. It goes and picks up the blood, the sugar that's in the blood that we don't need, and it goes and stores it. It brings it somewhere, right? And it brings it to the fat or to the liver, and it brings it to the working muscle cells. Mm-hmm. However, the problem is, and it does that every time you eat. Yep. Right? The problem is there's a limited storage in your liver. You can't just keep going, right? There's a limited storage in the liver and in the cells. And if you hit that top of that storage, right, then your body has no choice but to basically take that and turn it into triglycerides or fats. Right. Because it has to store it. It can't leave it in the bloodstream. Yep. So it has to move it. And it's going to move it as storage of fat. So because we eat all day long, if we're not on intermittent fasting, yep, our stores are full because we're not exercising all day long. Right. So therefore, when we eat again, when our stores are already full, we are giving the body no choice. We can say what we want. We can say, I want to lose weight all we want. We can make great food choices, but if we keep trying to add to already full stores, the body has no recourse except to store. And that is why intermittent fasting, to me and to the people I've worked with. Now, are there some people that don't believe in it? Sure. Is it perfect? Hell no. Mm-hmm. But for me, this is why I've seen it work so well, because we don't run into the problem of already eating when we have full stores. And therefore, we don't store the excess fat. And in addition, we get into times where we use up our stored energy and we can get our body into ketosis or fat burning quicker if we're not eating more than 10 hours a day, right? So that's why I get so excited about it, because it's so easy to see the connection between insulin response, mm-hmm, the amount of insulin response, the storage, and eating less than 10 hours a day. It's so easy to see. And the other thing I love about it, Luke, and I know you agree with this, it's within your control. Yeah. You know, there's all of this stuff out there. You should eat this. Good carbs versus bad carbs. Good fats versus bad fats. Like this vitamin, that vitamin. Man, is that overwhelming? But I'll tell you what's not overwhelming. The clock says 11 a.m. I can now eat. Right. The clock now says 7 p.m. I cannot eat anymore. Right. My window every day is 11 to 7. Right? I'm a 40-year-old man who is in the best shape of his life because I eat between 11 and 7. 100%. And everyone can do it. It's that simple. It's that easy. There's no complications. And that's why I love it.
Yeah, I think when I started doing intermittent fasting 4.5, 5 years ago, something like that. And the best thing I heard when I started doing intermittent fasting, because you hear the words and, you know, immediately think, man, that must be tough. And the best thing that I heard ever was somebody said, well, you understand it's just a fancy way of saying you skip breakfast. And then I thought about it and I'm like, man, that makes a lot of sense now. That
but you don't have to skip breakfast. You could skip dinner.
It could be that easy, though. It could be that simple that you do it. And I think you point out all the reasons why you should do it, right? And, you know, the thing that, and we'll dive into it more once we get into talking about intermittent fasting on one of the shows. But, you know, the thing of the intermittent fasting, you talk about those stores being full, and that's why you store up that fat, right? And it's the same thing when you look at intermittent fasting. And if you're using intermittent fasting now and you're struggling with it, or something's going wrong with it, or something like that, you may actually be doing intermittent fasting the wrong way, right? You may be shrinking your 6 to 10 hour window down to one meal. And if you bring it down to one meal, it's going to do the same thing for you. It's going to store a lot of fat up because those stores that you talk about are all going to be full at the same time too.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring it down to one meal and eat too much at one time,
Exactly.
it's going to be a massive problem. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so those are the 2 things to get right? So now let's go through the 2 things to get enough of. The first one is probably going to be the thing that everybody says they know they should do and they just don't do it, right? And that is you must eat enough protein. You must eat enough protein. And you know, what that means is you got to make sure that at least 30% of your calories come from protein. 30% of your calories come from protein. And the reason why you need to do that, there's a long list of why you need to do this, right? There's simple things that are on that list. One thing is it helps you feel full longer, right? Because it takes your body 5 times the amount of time to digest protein as what it does for anything else, right? And you also have a high thermic effect of food, right? And that thermic effect of food is in the digestion process, the amount of calories that it takes for you to digest food, right? And when it looks for, what that means is while you're digesting food, your body's actually burning calories while it's digesting food, right? So you turn your body into this huge inferno. And when you ingest protein, for your body to digest that, it takes 5 times the amount of calories for your body to digest that protein versus fats or carbohydrates. And because of that, you burn more calories. So you burn calories because of what you eat, right? And the other thing is protein is what helps build lean muscle. Lean muscle is what is used to burn body fat. Lean muscle uses body fat to operate every single day, which is why you see people as they add muscle on, right? All of a sudden their body fat starts going down, and all of a sudden they started saying how they feel better, they feel stronger, they have more energy, they have a lot more things because their body is working more efficiently and now their metabolism is working the right way. Things to add on about protein, Jake?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Like you said, it's the only thing that rebuilds muscle. Mm-hmm. You can't rebuild muscle with carbs or fats alone. It can't happen. And I think that's very important to understand. So if you do not put yourself in the environment, you can work out all day. You can work out the right ways and break down the muscle. If you don't create the environment, it's no different. You can go out right now in your garden and you could till it. You could make sure that you have the most beautiful plants that you buy, and you get everything ready and you got everything around, and then you don't put good soil in it and you don't water it. You created this beautiful plant, you put all this work in, and you put it in an environment where it's impossible for it to grow, right? Well, that's the same thing with working out. If you break down the muscle, but you don't put it in the environment, right? And that includes getting enough sleep, getting enough water and all that stuff. But if you don't give it enough protein, it has no chance. So it's making everything else you do so much better. I think that's huge. And I think the other big thing is body transformation is really tough. And so is mental transformation. And I think the 2 big things that you hit on, one, it makes you feel fuller longer. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer. And you said 5 times the length to digest it. It's 5 times the calories, and it is definitely longer, right, to digest it. I think you were jumping ahead on me with that one. But it's going to make you feel fuller longer, which is going to help you fight off cravings. It's going to help you make better decisions. So for both physically and mentally. So I think those things, I think you nailed it. I just wanted to expand a little bit on just having that environment to get what you really want. But when it's building lean muscle, it's a necessity.
Right. Second thing to get enough of, you must drink enough water, right? And let me just be clear, when I say water, I mean actual water. If there's caffeine in there, don't count it. If there's sugar in there, don't count it. Like, it's got to be actual water that you're consuming. And if you want to think about how to get to the number of water that you should be consuming, take your body weight times 0.66, right? And Jake, why do we use that number?
But it's what we use. And again, everything we're talking about here, this is what we use in Switch, right? Is there another way to get there? Yes. Are there people out there that believe less than 30% protein? Sure. Could you get there? Maybe, probably. We're just giving you what we use in Switch, and why we use 66% in Switch is simple. It gives us the number to make sure we avoid mild dehydration. Well, isn't it more than I need? Sometimes it is. But overhydration or hyperhydration is such a limited problem, such an infrequent problem, such a rare thing that we don't have to worry about that. Unless you're taking down 2 gallons a day, which we cap ours at 132 ounces or 1 gallon a day, right? Yeah. So we cap ours. And so unless you're taking in that much, like a couple gallons a day, you don't have to worry about the hyperhydration. So we use 66% to make sure it's above any mild dehydration. Because even a mild dehydration can slow metabolism by anywhere from 3 to 10%. And you're talking about 3 to 10% of your metabolism. Let's say your metabolism is running, and we can calculate this, but let's say it's running at basically 1,700 calories a day. Well, if you're slowing down by 1,700 calories, if you're slowing down by 10% because you're dehydrated, that's 170 calories a day. You multiply that by 7 days in the week, and you're talking about now over 1,000 calories a week. Probably, that you're going to be slower.
Probably a half a pound.
Or 50,000 in a year.
Right.
50,000 in a year, that's 15 pounds almost.
Right.
Right? You're talking about 15 pounds difference in a year, all because you were mildly dehydrated. Right? So that's why we pick that number. It gives us a good ballpark, a good way to assure we are over the mild dehydration. And let's not forget, 3 out of 4 adults. 3 out of 4. Right? So I know you have a lot of friends. I have 4. So that means 3 of them, out of the 4 people that I have friends, 3 of them are mildly dehydrated chronically.
So anybody that's not named Luke is mildly dehydrated.
So I didn't say you were my friend.
Oh, ouch. Man, how times have changed. No, that's a good point, right? And you think about it, it's your body's made up of so much fluid, right? It's just like the world is made up of so much water. And it doesn't matter how much water you intend to put back. Here's how much water is necessary to put back in every single day. We've talked about it for a long time. And, we brought it up one time looking out at a pond and said, that pond requires so much water out there. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter how you feel about it either.
No! Here's how much water you must put into that pond to fill it up every single day. Here's how much water must be in there no matter what. That's a pretty simple thing. And when you think about the dehydration process that you're talking about, and mildly dehydrated, if you thought about every single week, having an opportunity to burn an extra half a pound every week, right, and you're giving that up just because you don't want to drink water, you'd rather drink something else or nothing at all, that's just wild. Right. That's just wild. So that's number 2. That's a number 2 thing to get enough of inside of a program. Now, these are the fun ones. These are the unfun ones, however you want to look at it. The 2 things that you must avoid, and all of you are probably thinking, man, I know the FCs are easy to avoid, I could do no problem at all. Well, 90-some% of America does not avoid these things, and that's why it's a staple in here, and that's why our people get such great results. Number 1 thing is avoid processed foods. Avoid processed foods, right? And that means anything that comes in a package. Limit the amount of packaged goods that you consume every single day, every single week. Whenever you go to the grocery store, try to avoid stuff in packaging. And it's pretty easy to think about why. And I brought this up, I think a week ago to somebody else talking to them. It now becomes manufactured food, not grown food like our ancestors lived on. It's called manufactured food. It was made in a plant somewhere, right? It was made in a physical operating plant by human beings. And that means that to make it processed, they took a lot of the good things out of it so it could stick on a shelf, right? They took out the fiber, because fiber's not palatable, right? So they took the fiber out of things, right? They put bad things in. They put preservatives in there, right? They put preservatives in there just so you could keep it on a shelf and you can use it whenever you want. And the worst part about that, your body can't use any of that stuff. They can put some good things in there, right? But to put any good things in there, they must put negative things in there to go with it just so it can survive on a shelf. And those negative things that they put in there, your body cannot use. Your body must dispose of. Your body can't use them. Things they add on processed foods, Jake.
No, it's hard.
It is hard.
I mean, I eat processed foods every once in a while. It's hard. It's convenience is king for a lot of people.
Right.
And convenience makes you overweight. And convenience makes you lethargic and tired. And yeah, it's convenient to eat out of a box. It's convenient to eat out of a package. But it's not transformation food. It's just not.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add in there, it's hard to a point. And when you start doing it, just like anything else, when you started working out, how much did you like working out?
I still don't really like it.
But you get up and do it every day?
Every day.
Every single day you do it. You know that you must do it. And it takes a lot more time to work out than it does to prepare a meal that is good for you and healthy for you, right? The most difficult thing that you're going to find is avoiding all those aisles in the shopping center. That's the most difficult thing that you're going to find is avoiding that.
Well, that in meal prep, like you said, we'll talk about meal prep later, but finding the time in your schedule to actually just meal prep on Sundays so you can avoid packaged foods, because that's where you run into problems. Is if you got your food cooked for the week and you got the little Tupperwares of the stuff you need, that you don't run into problems. It's when you open the fridge and that's gone, or you didn't make it. Now it's packaged,
right? The actual preparation of the food, though, isn't that difficult.
No.
And if anybody thinks it is, get inside of our program and come watch my kids cook on Sundays.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because we prepare these great meals on Sundays, and we do them as much natural stuff as we possibly can inside these meals. And it's not difficult to do it. You just have to set the time aside, and you just have to go do it. And when you watch those and you see that, we make one meal that turns into, there's probably 8 containers we put away yesterday of the stuff that we had, which is going to be saved for this week and also frozen for coming up. That's how we avoid processed foods. And it's how we get ourselves to, run more efficiently and do those things. So first thing to avoid is processed foods. Second thing is Jake's favorite one. Second thing is avoid added sugar. So for women, no more than 25 grams of added sugar every single day and 35 for men. Your body has absolutely zero need for added sugar. Zero need for added sugar. All these things do is they cause insulin spikes, right? And they lead you on a complete roller coaster. A complete roller coaster. And they're everywhere, which is the toughest part, right? Is these things are everywhere. So when people are looking for added sugars and really doing this, Jake, what are the things that they need to be aware of?
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is you look at your nutrition label and you see carbohydrates and you see sugars, and then below it you see added sugars. And basically an added sugar it's most of the time used in the processing part of creating the food. So they're adding basically tablespoons of sugar to make this thing taste better. You'll see it a lot in desserts, juices, those types of things. And really what happens is because they're all alone, so it's just simple sugar, there's no fiber, there's no vitamins, no minerals, the body gets through it, digests it real quick.
Yep.
Like boom. And when it does that, your blood sugar skyrockets. And when your blood sugar skyrockets, your insulin response skyrockets. Right? There's an index that tells us what food produces what amount of insulin. And you look at these added sugars and it's through the roof. Mm-hmm. And what happens is when that happens, you get this bigger insulin response. The body gets more and more resistant to the insulin. Mm-hmm. So you have to produce more and more and more. So now your insulin response gets bigger and bigger, just like an alcoholic where they develop a dependency and they develop a tolerance.
Right.
You have to take in more and more and more, and that's the same thing that's happening here. And the big thing that's going to happen to you, so what do you got to watch out for? You got to watch out for this roller coaster that's going to happen with added sugars. Because let's say I have a real big added sugar breakfast. I have a bagel, and I have some jelly, and I have some cinnamon toast crunch. That was a big one when I was a kid, right? And so I have all this sugary stuff, right? Well, I'm going to have this massive spike. And when I have this massive sugar spike, I'm going to get a massive insulin spike. And with a massive insulin spike, all my Uber drivers are coming. It's going to take all my sugar out of the blood, right? So now my blood sugar went from really, really high to boom, crashing down. So now my blood sugar is really, really low. Now I feel real hungry. I feel upset. I lose all my energy, right? I start to make all these bad decisions because when my cravings start to come back. Yeah. And now guess what I do? I feel terrible, so I eat a bunch of added sugar again, and I go on this roller coaster all day. So you really got to watch out for that because it's going to change the way you feel, change the way your body stores things. It is going to be an absolute nightmare. So the next time you want to have for breakfast, I'm in a real big hurry, so calories matter. So all I'm going to have is this Snicker bar for breakfast. Understand that's not the best choice. Yes, your calories might be lower, but your insulin is going to, your blood sugar is going to go up, and then it's going to come crashing down. So always watching for that to be able to stay away out of that roller.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that, don't just think about this as food either.
Oh yeah.
When you're drinking different items, soda, your favorite coffee shop, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever it may be, the amount of added sugar that goes in a drink is more than a human being should consume in one day. Is more than they should consume in one day.
Easy.
And those are things that, if you want to look for the quick things to avoid to help you out right away, look at how many of those things you consume every single week, every single day. All right, now it's time for the Flip the Switch segment, right? The Flip the Switch segment. So, your challenge for the rest of this day, right? The first thing that you must do for the rest of this day is don't eat more than 1 gram of added sugar or any processed food. Just for the rest of the day. Just for today. I'm not talking about the rest of the week. I'm not talking about any of that. Just for today. Just start with from now until the end of the day today, not more than 1 gram of added sugar, no processed foods. And drink 100 ounces of water. Make sure that you drink 100 ounces of water. So that's today. That's the rest of today. And it sounds easy, but I'm telling you, you better start looking at labels right now, and you better start looking at what you're going to consume the rest of the day already. So that's just the rest of the day. For the next 72 hours, so starting tomorrow, keep track for the next 3 days of how many calories you eat per day. Get your number. Go get your number. But keep track of how many calories you eat per day. Keep track of how much water you're drinking. Water, not fluids. Water you're drinking. Keep track of how many added sugars you're consuming. And then keep track of the number of processed foods you're consuming at the same time too. So the 4 things that you must do, right? Bring it back next week, report on it, comment it in here as the week goes on, how it's going, come back, hit this post up a bunch of times, but keep track of how many calories, how much water, the amount of added sugars, and then the number of processed foods that you consume each day. Then compare and decide what you need to change, right? So start looking then at, here's the things I say I want to do. So here's what I say I want to do. I want to lose weight, I want to maintain weight. Here's what I say I want to do, right? I want you to compare the number of calories that you intook versus the number that you need, right? So go find a BMR calculator. I said find your number, right? Go find a BMR calculator. You can find them online everywhere. And it's a simple equation that they use in there, right? Go find a BMR calculator and figure out how many calories that you need to intake every single day. Compare those 2 numbers, right? Then compare the amount of water you drank versus how much water you should drink, right? Your body weight times 0.66.
That'd be a lot of water.
That'd be a lot of water. It could be a lot of water for some people. Anyways, cap it at a gallon though. Cap it at 132 ounces. So if your number ends up being 200 and some odd ounces, cap it at 132 ounces. So compare how much water you drank versus what you should be drinking. Compare how many added sugars you had versus 25 for a female or 35 for a male. Compare those two numbers in a day. And then look at the number of processed foods. How many processed foods are you consuming every single day? And if you look at the number and you're like, damn, you know that you got to start eliminating them, right? And then you got to start looking at what are the things that I can use to replace those processed foods, right? What can I use that can replace that thing that I'm putting into my body that's not going to get processed the right way anyways? What can I do to basically replace a manufactured food with a real food that has dietary things that are going to help you at the same time? What do you think about that challenge?
I think it's good. I mean, I think, and I probably messed you up, but isn't a gallon 128 ounces?
128, could be.
I think I said 132 when I was talking about 32 before. I don't know.
You did.
I'm messing you up.
Could be 128 ounces.
But 132 is fine too.
No, do 128. That's the math. The math is undefeated. 128 ounces. All right, let's wrap this baby up. So this week in the Flip the Switch podcast, we dove into nutrition, right? Because nutrition plays a huge role in transforming your mind and your body, right? Yes, your body, because nutrition controls a lot of it, right? But your mind, because your mind is going to tell you not to do things or to do things as you go through the nutrition aspect of everything, and you got to be strong, right? You got to use that discipline from last week and come in here. So nutrition plays a huge role in transforming your mind and body. Today, we dove into an overview of the nutrition that we use inside of Switch Fitness, right? The principles that we use inside of here, and the principles that we've used for well over 15 years to help get people crazy results, right? First thing you got to make sure, right? The 6 things, right? Remember, there's 2 things that you have to get right, 2 things that you have to get enough of, and the 2 things that you need to avoid. You got to make sure that you have the right calories, right? You got to make sure that that's the thing you get right, is the right amount of calories, right? You have to eat them at the right time. That was the intermittent fasting that we talked about. You have to eat them at the right time. So those are the 2 things to get right. Then we dove into the 2 things that you got to make sure you get enough of. You got to make sure you get enough protein, right? Thermic effective foods, and building the muscle up so you can burn that body fat. And you got to make sure you get enough hydration. Get your metabolism running at peak performance and keep it running there, right? You got to make sure to have enough hydration, because even mild dehydration is going to slow you down by up to 10%. And that means that it could cost you a third of a pound, a half pound every week, up to 15 pounds a year or more, right? So that's a big deal when it comes to people that are looking to lose weight or even maintain weight at the same time too, right? So those are those 2 things. Then there's 2 things to avoid. Avoid the processed foods, right? There's nothing there that you need. There's nothing. There's nothing. They take the good stuff out and they put the bad stuff in there that your body can't use up anyways. And then added sugars, right? That was the other thing. Avoid the added sugars. So getting into, remember, our Flip the Switch segment today, our challenge that we have for today, the rest of the day today. No more than 1 gram of added sugar, 0 processed foods, and you got to make sure you consume at least 100 ounces of water a day. Just today. This isn't every day for the rest of your life. This is just today. Start off with this, right? And then the challenge is for 72 hours, starting tomorrow, keep track of your calories, keep track of your hydration, keep track of your added sugars, keep track of your processed foods, and then compare them to what you should be doing. Go to a BMR calculator, find your calories, compare that to your calories, compare your hydration of how many ounces of water you should drink to what you drank. Same thing with added sugars. Compare that to what you actually did. And then in processed foods, really dive into, see how many processed foods you're consuming right now and what you can do to cut back on those. Anything I missed?
No.
Perfect. All right. Start your 72-hour challenge tomorrow. Finish today off the right way. As always, follow us on Facebook. Like, subscribe, share, follow us on Spotify. Do the same thing there. If you took anything away from this podcast, make sure you share it with somebody. Hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up everywhere.
The wait list. They could get on the wait list too, because we're filling that thing up.
Yeah. So round 2 for Switch Fitness, our next round that we have starts up in September, right? So there's a wait list that's right on our website at switchfit.me. Which you can join the wait list right there. I will tell you right now, we're only taking 100 people on this wait list, right? I will tell you that we spent a lot of years in a big box setting, and we seen people that needed attention that didn't get enough attention, and we said we'd never do that, and we would make sure that people got the attention that was necessary to get the results. We're taking 100 people on the wait list and only 100 people, and that thing is filling up fast. So if you want to make a change in your life, get to that wait list, switchfit.me. There's a tab on there called the wait list. Go right there, fill out that wait list. I'll send you an email confirming your spot on that wait list, but places are filling up fast, so make sure you get there. Again, outside of that, tag somebody that needs to hear this podcast. Like, subscribe, share. Go have a banger Monday and a better Tuesday. Appreciate y'all.